Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my podcast. So it's been a little bit of it's been a few weeks since I put a podcast together, and I apologize for that. A lot has happened since then. I mean, my life has sort of dramatically altered, and nevertheless sort of remained eerily exactly the same as it was before. So I mean, I guess let's jump right in. Tell you a little bit about what happened. Basically, I got on the hype train. Now, I don't know if you've ever been on a hype train before, but boy, are they fun. So this is probably going to be a little bit. I don't want to say controversial, but some people might be like, Joe, what the fuck were you thinking? Now, I mean, nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened. But I did become, for a short period there, if not a digital artist in my own right, then at least a promoter of digital art, in order to try to, sell some NFTs on the blockchain, baby. Woo! So it didn't really work out, but I got some friends involved, and we, I tweeted. Like, I never use Twitter because Twitter is a terrible place, but I tweeted to promote these little artworks on the blockchain, these little NFT artworks. I tweeted like a maniac. I was retweeting and commenting and following, and I managed to get up to like 110 followers in Twitter. Just doing that for like a week and a half. Which I guess is impressive. It didn't sell any of our digital artworks, unfortunately, but it was still a thing. And yeah, I mean, maybe you're thinking, okay, wow, what are you talking about, Chell? Digital art, NFT, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about it, because it's fun. It was fun. It's a fun space. We'll probably continue to do it, but probably I owe it to you guys to give a little bit of an explanation, just in case, you're not on this particular hype train, with me. So, the blockchain is a technology that you might be familiar with. It's the one that where the Bitcoin, the Bitcoin thing, which I often ask my students. So I teach English. I've got a full schedule again, which is also part of the reason why it's such a delay between podcasts. But I asked my students recently, as sort of a warm-up question, if you guys could travel back in time to any point in history, or where would you go and why? And I get lots of really interesting answers. Some people say I would travel back in time to the Italian Renaissance, or I would travel back in time to my honeymoon, or I would travel back in time and kill Hitler. I got that answer from one student. And these are great answers, and I think they're very interesting. But my answer is I would travel back in time to about a year ago today, maybe the beginning of March 2020, which, most people would be like, well, you want to travel back to like right before the beginning of the lockdown? What are you, fucking crazy? But no, I mean, I would travel back in time then, and I would take all the money that I had and I would buy Bitcoin. Because now, everything else, and the reason is simple. If I go too far back in time, what if I end up making a change to the world or to my life? And I mean, the world's full of fucking problems. So maybe making some changes to the world is not such a bad thing. But I'm quite happy with how my life turned out, and I wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize that. So I don't want to go too far back in time. However, it would be nice to have pretty much the exact same life that I have now, plus, I don't know, a couple $100,000 additional, which is what I would do buying Bitcoin. And I know Bitcoin is not environmentally friendly, and I think that's a big problem, and might even be what kills Bitcoin in the end. However, maybe not so much blockchain technology. Other blockchains are more environmentally friendly, but that's all sort of an aside. I wanted to talk about NFTs. So NFTs are basically little bits of like little digital memes, little bits of digital art, maybe little digital collectibles. And a bunch of people in the finance bro space saw these things and said, hey, maybe this will be the next Bitcoin. Maybe if we buy some digital art that's been sort of created on this blockchain, that sort of lives in the blockchain, maybe in a few years, this digital art will become worth millions, or not even a few years, maybe in a few days or hours, it'll be worth millions and we can all get filthy rich. And I don't know about that. I don't know about that at all. But I thought, well, I mean, if people are buying these things, then maybe I should try to sell them. Yeah. I mean, I'm not interested in buying them myself. There were definitely some examples of these digital art pieces becoming worth a lot of money. I mean, Christie's sold a Beeple for $66 million. It's like the third, largest sum ever paid for artwork from a living artist at Christie's auction house. So that's pretty impressive. And there have been a few other success stories like, CryptoPunks or hash masks or whatever. You can Google all these things if you're interested. And so I got together with a friend of mine, and he animates some very cute birds, and we started trying to sell these birds on the blockchain. And we did that for a while. We didn't sell anything, but it was fun, and this friend of mine, he's a creative dude, and I was happy to see him sort of tap into that creativity in a way that might, also have some financial benefits for him, for myself. I didn't really enjoy the whole tweeting thing, because Twitter sucks. Even if so the NFT space in Twitter is not exactly as toxic as most of those political spaces where everybody just sits around calling each other names. Because Twitter is basically designed to for you to just sit around and call each other names. Because, you can only, 160 characters. So you can't really make a nuanced argument on Twitter. All you can do is be like, you're fucking stupid. It's like 95% of Twitter is just people calling other people fucking stupid. And the NFT space is not like that. Everybody's very positive, but, they're also all trying to sell their art, and it's a bit competitive. And, who wants to stare at a screen tweeting? God, how did Twitter become popular when the things that you create on Twitter are called tweets? Isn't this such a ridiculous name for something? Like, I'm going to go tweet. I'm going to tweet about this. How do you say that with a straight face? The president of the United States tweeted. He tweeted, like, shut the fuck up. So, yeah. Anyway, we did that. Then it turns out that if you create these NFTs and you put them on the blockchain and you sell them, and you do that, say, 100 times. So you sell 100 NFTs, and this is on the Ethereum blockchain, for those of you who are curious. That would create an environmental impact roughly equivalent to what the average EU adult, their impact in a year, which is fucking unbelievably massive environmental impact. So we immediately stopped doing the NFT thing, even though, again, we never sold anything. So the environmental impact that we had wasn't so great. And we went looking for other blockchains with besides Ethereum that are more environmentally friendly, where we could mint or create these NFTs. And we found some, and we're still doing that. But yes, I was way too preoccupied being a digital art curator, a digital art promoter, to continue with the podcast. So that's a little bit of an update. And but in the end, it was an adventure, and who knows? Apparently the NFT space is like totally crashed, and all these finance pros have decided, no, this is not a good way to speculate, and maybe that's good. Maybe the finance bros will leave the space, and there will be more room for people who want to make cutesy digital art collections, which is what we do. We're cutesy digital art collections makers. So yeah, just a little update there for you. And other than that, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really prepared a deep dive for the podcast. I do have some random rants sort of in my back pocket and ready to go. And I thought that I would just keep it pretty casual today, just to put out another podcast, since again it's been It's been a little while, and I'm a little bit embarrassed about that, especially since I have Patreons. Thank you, Logan, Vanessa, Stacy, who's also my mom. So thank you, Mom, and Logan and Vanessa. You guys are amazing. Yeah, of course, I also want to say, if I'm not producing things and you're like, fuck, Chell, I'm giving you like $2 a month, and where's my fucking podcast? Like, if you cancel your Patreon, like this is me asking for the money, right? Like it's just, you can cancel it. Don't worry about it. Like, but really though, like, you don't have to, no hard feelings if I was doing this like 2 times a week and keeping up with it and then you canceled it, I'd be like, well, fuck you then too, but given that it's been almost like a month now since I've done a podcast, I mean, I totally understand if you also, are a little bit hesitant, but should I put that in the podcast? Like welcome to my podcast, like, become a Patreon, but also like don't, because maybe I don't fucking do enough podcasts. And so yeah, I mean, I actually worked as a salesman in college in the United States. I worked for, Russ Dalby's Note Network. I wonder if even saying the name is like, puts me in like, could they sue me for just even mentioning them? I mean, they're an awful fucking company. Could they sue me if I mentioned them and call them an awful fucking company? What if I'm telling the truth though? Like, can you be sued for telling the truth? I don't know. It's not like anybody's going to hear this, but yeah, Russ Dalby's Note Network. They basically like call people at 3:00 in the morning. No. Their infomercials are at 3:00 in the morning, but they call people at like, 2 in the afternoon. And they say, hey, you poor? And people are like, yeah, pretty poor. It's like, oh, well, what about this? You take out a second mortgage on your house. And they're like, yeah, well, I already have a second mortgage. It's like, yeah, there's no problem. You take out a third mortgage then, he set that up for you and then you'll have a bunch of money to spend. You can get that PlayStation 2 or whatever. Cause I mean, remember this was back in the day. So, we weren't at 4 yet. We were still at 2 and yeah, you'll have a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. Everybody will have a good time. And then they do that and they buy a bunch of like, information from us about how to do that. And of course the information is very cryptic. And so then they would call them back and be like, hey, did you do it? And they're like, well, no, I didn't really understand the information that you sent. And you're like, oh, no problem. Cause if you just give me more money, I'll explain it to you. And yeah, so that was soul destroying job, which I only was doing because I was suspended from the university for rioting because I was protesting the upcoming war in Iraq. And there was like an altercation with the police officer, even though I didn't really altercate with him at all, but he had anger management issues and needed a scapegoat. And that was me. And so that's my college story. It was great. I quit that job. I quit that Russ Dalby job because worst job I ever had. But the point that I'm trying to make is I'm not a great salesman. So, which is, why I just basically suggested you not become Patreons. When really it would be awesome if you did become Patreon. I promise that if I get like enough Patreons, I will absolutely only do the podcast and nothing else. The thing is that right now, the what is it, like $8 I'm earning with this a month, while I'm extremely appreciative for that. And it's totally awesome. I got like $16 sitting in Patreon. $16 is like 4 cheap meals. And man, let me tell you, I love cheap food. Some people, they say, let's go to a nice restaurant. And I mean, I would absolutely go to a nice restaurant if you're paying. Don't get me wrong. But I also love to just go across the street and get a Döner, which is like a German meat sandwich. And I love me some meat sandwich. So yeah, I get like 4 meat sandwiches so far for doing this podcast. And I'm pretty fucking happy with that. I ain't going to complain about that. So cool. I don't know. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, rants. So, yeah, I figured I would just rant today, just do a little bit of a rant. And I thought I would rant about maybe my favorite topic, which is not fascism. You might think, well, it's probably going to be fascism. But it's not. My favorite topic to rant about in my head. This is also, you guys are, congratulations. You're the first people, maybe besides potentially my wife, who has to listen to my rants all the time. So, but, yeah, but you might be the first people to hear this. that aren't inside of my head. Now, I mean, the head side, it's pretty crowded in there. So, it's not like I haven't delivered this rant to an audience before, but, you're the first, real people besides perhaps my wife that, has heard that. Well, anyway, the rant, it's about gender. It's about gender. It's a hot topic. It's a hot topic. And I think, the sort of the core of the rant about gender is, why is it a fucking hot topic? Right? Like suddenly there's all these people that have decided that it's really fucking important that there are only two extremely well-defined genders. And then they give a bunch of fucking spurious bad reasons for that. And the whole thing is like for some reason. And it's not really clear to me at all what the problem is. And it's also, one of the sort of pieces of modern irony here that people who believe so strongly, politically and philosophically in like individuality and freedom and individual choice and all of these sorts of things and like non-government intervention and all of that sort of stuff are nevertheless, like when it comes to gender, willing to sort of abandon all of their values and be like, no, actually, you're not free to choose your fucking gender. And we want the government to intervene as much as possible. And there's no individual choice here. There simply are only two genders. And if you don't conform to this model, then there's something fucking wrong with you. And it just seems like, why? Why do you fucking care? Right? Mr. Conservative, bro. Like, why do you care? What sort of skin do you have in the game? Like have your whole life, have you wished it to be the other gender and now you're so, and you've repressed that part of you for so long that like the possibility that other people wouldn't have to go through the same battle that you've gone through, like fills you with resentment. And so you decide to like just hate on the idea of there being alternatives to the sort of old-fashioned, duality, two gender thing, which never ever fucking existed, right? Like there have always been at least intersex people, and absolutely, I mean, why I say at least, I mean, there've always been trans people. These people have always existed across cultures and across times. And so there have never actually only been two genders. We've always had more of them. It's just sort of the expression of them that changes. And also talking about this gender essentialism, this just biological determinism, they say like men are this way, women are that way. But I think just a cursory glance at history and you see a lot of men being other ways and women being other ways, So like if you like look at like how women behaved in feudal Japan, it's nothing like how they behave in modern Western society. Just totally fucking radically different. Same with men. If you look at how like men behaved in like ancient Rome or ancient Greece, and you compare that to now, it's just the behaviors are totally fucking different. So where's the essentialism here? Like if my gendered behavior is biologically determined, then why do men and women, masculine and feminine sort of types throughout history behave so differently? Where's the genetic determinism there? It seems cultural. Cultural seems pretty obvious. It's called cultural, and it can totally change. I imagine that, behaviors typically associated with men or with women 150 years from now will be different from behaviors typically associated with men and with women today. And then you get all of this from the same sort of conservative space, you get all of this concern about how men are actually are losing their sort of privileged position. And they wouldn't put it that way. They wouldn't be like, oh, men are losing their privilege. That sucks, because I mean, they don't believe in privilege anyway, because they live in some sort of hole inside of in their butt. That's where they live. They just put their head up their butts. They live in there. But But, there's like this concern like, oh, men are losing their position in society. Really, men are the ones that are being discriminated against. In the past, men could just get any job they wanted, and now women get jobs. Oh, and now they're thinking about letting trans people have jobs too. God, what the fuck is the world coming to? It's so awful, says the conservative, right? Yeah. So, and men, and and then to point out how hard, of course, men have it. Right? They say, well, look at suicide rates among men. Look how depression levels among men. Men really have it hard. Men are really suffering, And it seems to me like, yeah, absolutely. Men are suffering. I mean, are they suffering more relative to other groups? I don't know. Statistics or something, right? But they definitely suffer. But are they suffering because there are trans people? Because I don't think that's the reason that they're suffering. I think men are probably suffering because they're trying to conform themselves to some sort of masculine behavioral stereotype that doesn't make any fucking sense. Because, James Bond is crying on the inside, and not even just crying. It's more like he's clawing, he's tearing his mental fingernails off trying to escape this pit of masculinity that he's trapped in. He's always got to be so fucking cool, but the truth is that he's scared shitless, and he just wants somebody to comfort him and tell him everything's going to be all right, but nevertheless, everybody's like, God, James Bond, he's such a manly man. I got to be like James Bond too. And so all of these emotions that I have inside of my body, I'm just going to repress them. And then I'm going to get super depressed and like everything sucks. And why can't I have hot babes like James Bond has? I mean, I pretend like I don't give a shit about anything, just like James Bond does, but still I don't get the hot babes, and that just makes me feel worse, and I don't understand what I'm doing wrong, and it's all because trans people, they're the problem. Trans people, I blame them. And it's like, but dude, it seems to me the problem is not trans people or women or any of that shit. The problem is this model of masculinity. This culturally determined model of masculinity is not genetic. It's cultural. We've already established that you insist is good for you when actually it's bad for you. It's fucking awful for you, and the thing about feminism and the thing about, trans rights and all of that is that the ultimate aim is to move past socially constructed behaviors associated with particular genders, right? Like that is sort of the ultimate utopian goal, at least in my mind, that men will be able to have traditionally, historically, behaviors historically associated with women, that men, that anybody can simply behave in any sort of way that they like. That a person born with a penis can act, depending on, context and their particular feeling, can act in a quote unquote feminine way, or in a quote unquote masculine way, or in a quote unquote other way that we haven't really discovered yet because we're so set in this like false binary between masculine and feminine, right? And of course, if you were to take a very careful look at how we actually behave like individuals in, our daily lives, our private lives and our public lives, you will absolutely find that people with penises who identify as men, and people with vaginas who identify with women, and people with vaginas who identify as men, and people with penises who identify as women, and intersex people, and the whole spectrum of possible gender identities, that all of these people have behaviors, that express behaviors sometimes that are historically masculine or historically feminine. Strong men cry too, right? Like Big Lebowski, he said it, it's fucking words of wisdom. Strong men cry too, right? And of course, absolutely. But crying is a quote unquote feminine behavior, right? But strong men cry too. So even strong men are also sometimes expressing behaviors historically associated with femininity. And, and sometimes we like to, baby talk with our significant other for no fucking reason. I mean, babies aren't exactly a gender, but it's a pretty weird fucking behavior thing to do. Did you ever think about that? Like, why do I sometimes with my partner just like baby talk for an hour? That's odd. Is that masculine? Is that feminine? What kind of behavior is that? Is that biologically determined? Like, no, people do weird shit People behave in different ways. We were never in this very strict, deterministic gender binary. It never existed. We never behaved that way. But it's always been far more fluid and far more open. We just pretend in the public sphere that we only ever behave these ways. We watch Leave It to Beaver and we say, yes, the father in Leave It to Beaver is how men should behave. They're basically absent until the evening, where they sit smoking their pipe and reading the newspaper, and then the son comes and says, hey, Dad, I want to invest in the stock market. And the dad says, well, that's a very reasonable idea of you, son. And I would suggest that you do research into the stock market, and also go bug your mother, because I'm smoking my pipe now, so get the fuck out of my face. And that's how men are. And then the wife is like, oh, hey, Leave It to Beaver, I made you food and you want to eat, and like, oh, I love you so much, let me give you kisses on your face. And that's what women do. And end. Period. The end. There's nothing more to it, and it seems to me that, like, no, right? Like, you shouldn't trust movies and television to tell you how people behave, because there's all of these scenes in movies and television that sort of aren't included, right? Have you ever wondered, like, that you'll have two characters in a like a cop drama, and they'll be having a conversation. They're like maybe walking down the street and they're having a conversation. And then in the next second, they're back in the office and they're having the same conversation. Right? And you think to yourself, well, what about that whole part of like getting to the office? Were they just saying nothing? What were they doing? Maybe they were baby talking with each other. Maybe the two cop partners, they get in the car and there's nobody around and they just switch into their baby talk because they're so comfortable with each other. I have no idea. Right? But there's something left out. It's very unusual to like drive for a half an hour, to start a conversation, drive for a half an hour, arrive at your destination and continue the conversation as though the half an hour drive just didn't happen. Right? So there's clearly behaviors that you're not seeing in movies and TV. Like, what about pooping? How do people behave on the toilet? Like, if you were to say, I model my behavior after what I see in popular culture, then how would you know how to poop? Because I can tell you, I don't think I've ever seen a movie or a television show where somebody's pooping, unless it's like diarrhea. So is that it? Because in movies and television, every time you see somebody pooping, it's like some disgusting diarrhea scene. So then you think, fuck, when I poop, I have to also poop disgusting diarrhea scene. I mean, think about how ridiculous that would be, right? But that's exactly what we do with gender behavior, right? Like we let movies and television tell us exactly how we should behave according to our gender. And then we say, but it's also genetically determined. And it seems to me, no, it's not genetically determined, Mr. Conservative Bro. It's determined by the movies and the television that you're watching. And so, and also, like, Mr. Conservative Bro, maybe if you were to expand your movie television catalog to include, more, LGBTQ movies, insofar as those exist, and I mean there are some, of course, not as many as where's the trans character in the Marvel franchise, right? But if you were to include more movies, then you would maybe also realize that there are behaviors that you're allowed as a human being to express, because not everybody's James Bond. There's other movies besides James Bond and Marvel superheroes. And that you can sort of model your behavior after. Though ultimately you shouldn't be modeling your behavior exclusively after what you see on television in movies anyway. You should just sort of do what feels right for you in the moment. Yeah. And I mean, this all, of course, recognizing that what might feel right for you in the moment is also heavily determined by the cultural context that we live in, right? Like, I mean, if I want to like walk into a room full of my friends and do a little twirl and flip my hair, they would all think, wow, Chel's gone fucking crazy. Why is he acting so feminine here? He must be making a joke. Ha 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 ha, And of course, I wouldn't feel comfortable behaving in a manner that is traditionally associated with with femininity, because I've been very much programmed by the society that I live in. And so as much as I would love to walk into a room and do a little twirl and flip my hair, and act in this quote unquote feminine manner, I sort of repress that urge because I want, on a subconscious level and partly on a conscious level, to express a more masculine sort of, type in public. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of fun that I could have, and there's a lot of connection that I could build with myself. I could build a lot more of that self connection, which is quite important, I think, if I felt comfortable expressing other gender behaviors, right? That would be awesome. Also wearing makeup or painting my fingernails. I had a friend in college, and she said when she paints her nails, she feels like she's got like super power lasers that like shoot out of her nails. And that she pretends when she paints her nails, and she's walking around with like bright red nails. She's like, phew, phew, zap, zap. I want superpower nails. Why can't I have superpower nails? Right? Like, that's not fair. But no, if Chell were to paint his nails, people would be like, what are you, gay, bro? What are you, trans, bro? And well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being gay or with being trans. I fear that particular social interaction. I fear it not only from a sort of a safety for myself level, which is totally legitimate because, if you are trans, there is a higher likelihood that somebody tries to kick your ass because they're a fucking bigot, right? And if I were to paint my nails, I might get my ass kicked, and I don't want to get my ass kicked. But I've internalized these gender norms and stereotypes, and I don't want to be, in German, auffällig. I don't want like to draw attention to myself, right? And so I just conform, at least outwardly as best I can, to this sort of masculine stereotype in public. Right. And again, that limits who I can be. That limits the connection that I can build with myself. I dream at night of, being a woman riding on back a dragon through the skies. And clearly there's this feminine element to Chell that just is begging to be explored. But I am limited by society, and I think that is probably the source of some of our mental health problems. These sort of arbitrary limitations that society puts on gender expression and the different ways that we're allowed to be in society. Right. So I think it's totally fucking crazy. And right now, all of these conservative states in the United States are passing a bunch of rules about, trying to restrict, essentially trans rights, and in the bathroom thing, think about the bathroom thing, and all these conservatives say, yeah, but if men, quote, yeah, because of course for them, a trans woman is just a fucking man wearing a dress. If men can use women's bathrooms, then they're just going to rape all the women in the bathroom, except the fucking truth is that if trans women are not allowed to use female bathrooms, then they're going to if they have to go in public, they're going to use the men's bathroom. And then the men in that bathroom are going to be like, what the fuck are you? And then that trans woman has put themselves in harm's way. Like, if you're going to talk about bathroom assault, the bathroom assault is not trans women assaulting women in female bathrooms. Bathroom assault is trans women being assaulted by men in male bathrooms because those men are bigots, and there's an obvious trans person here with them in the bathroom, and they feel like kicking the shit out of that person in the bathroom. Right? So that's where but the states are like, fuck that. We don't care about, we're conservative, we're Republican. We don't care about freedom or individuality or the right to make your own life decisions. All of that is just shit we say that we don't mean, because the truth is that we would prefer that trans women get their asses kicked in male bathrooms than that somebody, than that a trans woman be allowed to use a woman's bathroom. Imagine a trans woman who has done the hormone therapy, who, as they say, passes as trans, where people who don't know that this person is trans would never suspect that this person was assigned male at birth, right? Imagine that person using a men's bathroom. Like, what kind of fucking ridiculousness is that, right? So, and I can appreciate the idea of having female spaces, of having, you know, part of me says, fuck it, we should just not have fucking gendered bathrooms at all. Get rid of the whole fucking thing. But, you know, the problem with that is that men are fucking assholes and violent, aggressive assholes because of all the gender stereotypes that we're forced to live under. And so if we just had, you know, if we totally opened up, you know, no gendered bathrooms, you probably would have cases of men, you know, abusing women in bathrooms because men are fucking assholes, right? So I get that that's not something that we want, but trans women are of course women. And you know, and I think if a predator were to dress as a woman in order to gain access to female spaces and assault women, then that predator should be punished the same way that we would punish any predator, right? And like, to be 100% clear here, make all the fucking bathroom laws you want, but if there's a predator who is determined to assault women in a women's bathroom and to gain access by looking like a woman, then, you know, you don't even have to really pass very well to be able to walk into a woman's bathroom, right? You just have to, you know, whether that predator is trans or not, because I'm sure that there are some trans people who are also predators, because there's lots of different fucking kinds of people, and there's lots of assholes. No matter what group you belong to, you can be an asshole, because every group has assholes, right? But I mean, seriously, in normal life, if you look passably female and you enter a bathroom, you're probably not going to get an immediate pushback, right? And so if that's your strategy for assaulting women in female spaces like bathrooms, then making laws against trans people using bathrooms is not going to affect that. Those assaults will nevertheless continue to happen whether trans people are allowed to use bathrooms or not, right? But what you're doing is you're taking non-predators, which is the vast majority of any group are non-predators, you know, except maybe men. Because again, of the socially constructed gender stereotypes that men conform to. But the also of men, the vast majority of any group is non-predator. And what you're doing is you're putting that group at risk by saying that they can't use the bathroom, the identity that they have, right? So you're forcing, you know, trans women to either not use public restrooms or to risk entering a public restroom, or either that or break the law. And, you know, the majority of people don't want to break the law. Yeah. So the choice is either don't use public restrooms, one, B, break the law, or C, use the male restroom at the risk of being assaulted because you're a clearly trans person in the male restroom. And you live obviously in a conservative state, which is going to be full of bigots who would do harm to you, you know, because because they're fucking assholes, right? So there you have it. It's all a bunch of ridiculousness, and it's all a bunch of just being really mean to people, you know? And I think it's really unfortunate that we can't just be nice to each other. You know, I think that the conservative ideology of individual freedom is really good. You know, I think that, of course, that some collectivism would be also, you know, a few drops of collectivism into the individual soup, individualistic soup would do good for all of us. But nevertheless, I also believe that individual responsibility is a good thing. People should take responsibility for stuff. It fucking pisses me off when somebody makes a mistake and they just blame it on somebody else. Like, that's stupid. Now just take responsibility for your mistake. You know, individual responsibility is important to me as a leftist. You heard it here first, folks. Yeah, you heard it here first. Individual responsibility is also important to leftists. Fucking boom, mind blown. Right? And freedom is important too. I want freedom. I'm a leftist. I also want freedom. Yeah. You know, I want to be able to like leave my house and go outside and meet friends, which I can't right now because, you know, fucking pandemic. But, by the way, pandemic, guys, you know, all right, we're in a year now. It's fine. I'll give it another 9 months. Let's say, you know, summer 2022. But if like we get another variant of coronavirus and it sweeps all around and it's vaccine resistant and we maintain the lockdown for another year, at some point it's going to be, I'm going to call shenanigans on that shit. You know, at some point, and then it's going to become like a serious powder keg. All it's going to take is one nice day when a bunch of people are in a park in Germany, in northern Germany where it's cold most of the year and you get so few sunny, warm, nice days without a freezing cold wind. It's going to be one of those days and you're going to get a ton of people in the park and the police are going to cordon off the park and start arresting people and tear gassing those people. And then that's going to be the spark that lights the fire and the whole world is going to descend into fucking chaos. So we need to avoid that. So anyway, yeah, I'm totally, stick to the rules. We gotta lower that curve. We want to save people's lives. I'm 100% behind that. But it can't be indefinite. I'm not gonna live in quarantine for my whole life, for the rest of my life. And you might say, yeah, well, 1 year is fine. 1 year is an exception. 2 years, okay, you're pushing it. 2.5 years is, I think, my personal breaking point. I might be able to push it to 3 years if there's good evidence. I'll of course reevaluate at the time. But I gotta say, guys, maybe I'm also a little bit conspiracy minded. I've spent so much time in that space. But what if it is a fucking coup, right? What if it's all just as they looked at Arab Spring, they looked at the BLM protests, they looked at all these different, mass uprisings around the world and they said, shit, we have to do something to stop this. This is too dangerous. What if we engineer a virus and put everybody in permanent lockdown? Right. Now, again, that's probably not the case. It's probably not the case, but nevertheless makes me a little bit paranoid and I just don't want to live in a society. I don't want to spend these years of my life locked away, being unable to do any of the things that I enjoy and only being allowed to work. I think that's super fucked up. Maybe if they just said, okay, nobody works. We're going to take a giant holiday. You're not allowed to meet people or have fun, but you're also not going to work. And the government's just going to pay you to do whatever you want as long as it's not meeting people. Then I would be much more, open to that situation. Yeah, but I think it's pretty fucked up that all I can do is work and I can't play. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So, Jack's feeling kind of dull. So, yeah, you get your shit together, world. Anyway, coronavirus rant. That was a bonus. That was a bonus rant for you guys. Thank you for listening to my rants today. And, I feel that I didn't cover everything with the gender thing, but, I got distracted by coronavirus. So I think it's, we all know how that is. So, you're just going to have to forgive me. I think I covered most of the points. The inconsistency with conservative ideology. Oh yeah, that was it. I'm all for individualism. I believe collectivism is also really important, but I'm a leftist. I'm all for individualism. It's true. And, I just wish that the right also believed what they preach. Because if they really believed in individualism and individual rights and freedom, then they would have no problem with people, experimenting with gender and ideas. But the truth is that the right does not believe in freedom. They believe in inherited norms. That if my grandfather said that this is the way that things should be, then I'm going to believe that unconditionally without any sort of critical reflection on it. And I'm more than happy to build policy around it and to force other people to live shitty lives just so that I can believe that that the things my grandfather told me were right. Because it's so fucking important to me that my grandfather was never fucking wrong about anything, that I'm happy to basically throw a percentage of the population under a bus and not feel bad at all about it because my grandfather wouldn't have liked those people is the stupidest fucking thing ever. And conservatives, again, please remove your head from your ass, your collective heads from your collective asses, because it's really fucking annoying. Yeah. Also, why do you still love Trump? Stop loving Trump. Jesus. It's like, he's so fucking rich, right? And except that he's fucking probably poor. He's probably like deep in debt. I hope those tax returns get released, right? Cause he probably owes fucking billions of dollars to people all around the world. But nevertheless, you think an average Joe would ever become president of the United States? Fuck no. The average Joe doesn't get to be president of the United States. Even if you have to be either a billionaire or billions of dollars in debt to have any fucking shot at becoming the president of the United States. And everybody is like, oh, but Trump, he's like a normal man. He just says it like he thinks. He's just a normal guy. No, fuck that, dude. He's a fucking elite billionaire from New York. And you should stop praising him. Stop praising the fucking billionaires. I read this article from some, like the Dispatch or one of these, or Talking Points Memo, or one of these conservative, sort of, center right publications in the United States. And they're like, oh, even the authoritarian right now is also like trying to tax major corporations, and that's fucked up. And it's like, listen, I hate the authoritarian right. They're the worst. They're like the fascists, and I hate them. But tax corporations, man. Why the fuck should Amazon be allowed to be worth trillions of dollars and pay no taxes? It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. So there you go. That's the second bonus rant. Don't vote for Trump. Double bonus rant today for my sweet Patreons and all of the rest of you who listen to my podcast. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter today again. Because, I haven't prepared a deep dive. It will happen. I promise. Thank you for being patient with me. If you feel that that I'm not posting enough podcasts, you're more than welcome to stop being my Patreon, though it would make me a little bit sad on the inside. On the other hand, if you enjoy my content and you want more of it, then give me money. That would be amazing. Yeah. So, you can visit my Patreon site. It's, I think it's Tastefully Digressed or whatever. Oh shit, that's ignore, my podcast has no name. It has no name. And I've recorded all of these podcasts, on the first day that I started recording it. That's my shtick. I don't know if you noticed that shtick, but that's actually the shtick. I think I usually mention the shtick after like 40 minutes of podcast. So most people probably have never heard the shtick that I never talk about the name of my podcast, and I pretend that I've recorded all of these on a single day. So thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and Patreon me if you want more of this. If I get more, I will totally do more. I also have like tiered reward kind of thing going on in Patreon. Like in general, like if I get a certain amount of money per month, I think I'm close to it. I think I'm only like $4 away from it. Then I'm going to make a TikTok video, and like dance for you all. So like if somebody gives me $4 a month on Patreon, then you get to see a TikTok video where I'm dancing. It's pretty cool. I'm not a very good, if I'm drunk, I'm a pretty good dancer in my mind. I go to clubs and stuff and I get a little drunk and I'm like, whoa, man, I'm such a fucking good dancer. And like everybody kind of moves away from me on the dance floor, right? And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, they're giving me space to like show my moves, True story. So I think other people think that I'm a good dancer too when I'm drunk. When I'm not drunk, I'm not a bad dancer. I don't know how to dance. I just sort of wiggle, which is, it's normal. It's a normal way to dance. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're having fun. That's what I'm saying. Just have fun, and do whatever you want, right? Like, Jesus, and if you like hurt people, like intentionally, then you're an asshole and, fuck you. And maybe you go to jail or something, even though, I think alternative judicial punishment systems should be explored. So anyway, yeah, thanks for listening. I had fun. I hope you had fun too. Yeah. And, buy my NFTs. All right. Take it easy. Bye everybody. Have a nice day.